Hello and welcome to this video. In this video I will show you how I create the DNA for the historical characters in Victoria 3 for our mod Morgenröte. So first you can see that I put Victoria 3 in a window so that I have space on the right side for the different pictures of that person. I usually get them from Wikimedia Commons, and normal people that are kind of important have a lot of pictures usually. So in this case I have a picture of him young, old from the side, and one for the color to see what color his eyes had. But you really don't need all of them, like one is enough usually. But I like to make it more precise and take multiple pictures for reference. To access the portrait editor, you open up the console and press PE. I already did that and put some clothes on the people so that they are not naked. Next step, you go to the 3D view so that you have a bigger image, and you minimize this big window here, and then I usually just make it bigger. And obviously also zoom to the head in a way that it is about similar to the person there. And as you can see, the person is moving. To fix that, you can go to the animations over here and search for holy, and then you should get idle, holy, pop, idle, and that results in him being quite calm. So the first thing I usually do is eye colors, hair colors, and stubbles. For the stubbles, you press stubble, you enter stubble, and then you can just take them away because they will always look weird when they get old. Then for the eye colors, you go to eye color, and in this case I think he had somehow dark bluish grayish eyes. So first I will change the color to the right side. The top one is color, the lower one is like how dark it is. I think it's bluer. Maybe something like that. I think that looks good enough. Maybe a little more green to it. Oh. Maybe like this here. Yeah. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. Now back to the younger version of him. And another thing I would like to do is make his head higher. So I go to head and then height and make it slightly higher because I think he has a quite high head in comparison to the width. And then I also have to change how high up his eyes are, I think, because he looks like his eyes are a little further down. So a height here. I think this is good. And one more thing I do before I go through them one by one is the brows. And for that you go to chin eyebrows shape, and there you look at how far spaced the eyebrows are. In this case I think it's far spacing, and I would say average thickness. I usually make them a little thicker and then go to the eyebrow fullness, and there I usually give it high fullness because you really want to see them. Now that I look at it again, I think high thickness is actually the better choice here. And make them a little darker, yes. Now for the hair color, first I want hairstyles, and there is not a lot of options, so I just take the one that is closest, and I take a look real quick at his old picture. Yeah, I think I will just take this one because it's kinda similar. And then I have to do the hair color. For the hair color, this down here is again the darkness, and this is the amount of red. So if you make the hair really light, and on the right side here it's red, here it's blondish. I usually do about a third for dark-ish hair, and you can also see how it looks when he ages. So for not so dark hair, it actually gets brown or lighter with age. But in this case, he has quite dark hair. Okay, so now we have a guy. And I will make his head a little higher again. And his eyes a little lower. Actually, you know what? I will put the head height down and do the head top height. That's basically the forehead. Maybe like this. Yeah. Okay. Now the first thing that you can go to is cheek fat, and then you can basically just click through. So for his cheek fat, I think he has a little more cheek fat, but not too much. Then the cheek forward, I think his cheeks are just normal. Cheek height is usually too high, so I go down a little bit. And then cheek prom is interesting because you can make the cheeks very prominent, or like otherwise the cheek itself and not the cheekbone is getting more prominent. In this case, I think it's more to the left, so maybe like this. Then cheek width is how wide his cheeks are. In this case, I think it's a little less than average. Then we have chin forward. In this case, I go to the side and look at the side picture of him. Do you really see? Yeah, I think a little more maybe, and then it's fine. Back to the front. Chin height, more, I think. Maybe like this. And then cheek width, slightly more, but not too much. Maybe like this. Then we get to the ear angle. The ear angle is basically how angled the ear is. And for a lot of characters, you can actually ignore the ears completely. For this one, we can't, so I think his are angled like straight down. Then I skip two actually, and go to ear out because I want to get his ears a little more out first. Then the inner shape is the part inside of the ear, and I think in this case it's a little less than average. Then we have the ear lower bend. This is important for this guy because he seemed to be quite far out. Ear out we already had. Ear size is how high they are or how big. In this case, slightly more than average, I'd say. And then the ear upper bend is this one. Maybe a little more for him. Now the ear angle, the eye angle. Funny enough, it also moves the ears, but usually I think the neutral one is good enough for most characters. Then we have eye depth. That's basically how far in or out the eyes are. For that I can go to the side view again, and yeah, I think it's slightly more in. Oh, it's quite normal actually. So back to the front view. Okay. The eye distance, his eyes are closer. Maybe like this. Then we have the eye height. We already did something with this. Eye shut. I think his are shut a little more. Eye corner definition. This is how defined the eye corners are. I usually go a little bit higher than 50 for those. I leave this option alone because it usually isn't as important, I think. Except if you have like people with from Africa that have like quite flat noses, or maybe Asians too. But you probably should just look at it and see what matches best. The eyeball droop is this part. For him, I think is pretty neutral. Then we have the eyeball shape. I think that's also basically neutral. Then the eye size is interesting, because if you put the eye size lower, it gets smaller, but if you put it higher, it won't make the actual eye that much bigger. It will make the lids longer mostly. And for him, I think his eyes are slightly under 50. The eye upper lid size is pretty self-explanatory. Then the forehead angle, that one is interesting. You best look at it from the side, like this, and then you can look at how angled it should be. This guy seems to have a slightly more angled forehead, so I give him that. Then we have the brow curve. So the brow curve is either his brows are like this, like quite flat, or very round. In case of this character, I think they're a little flatter. Then we have eyebrow forward, which is how far forward the eyebrows go. And in this case, I think he has slightly forward going eyebrows. Yeah. Like this maybe. Okay. Next up we have the brow height, and in this case he has brows that are quite far down. But now we also need to raise the inner corner of the eyebrows a little. Then I think we also need to go back to the what was it? Eyeball droop, and put it up a little again. I think like this. Actually, in this case, this guy has quite thin eyebrows when he was young, and when he's old, they are ginormous. So you kind of have to decide what you want here. Then we have the outer height. You can look sad or like this, quite angry. In this case, I think it's pretty normal. Then the brow width is how wide the brows are. In this case, I think they are about normal sized. This guy is just quite normal, I think. And the forehead height is actually how high up it goes. And I think I will go a little lower for him. But later I probably have to raise his head even more. So let's go a little further down actually. Then the forehead roundness, you can't really see it from here, but if you turn him, it's quite visible. And I think in his case it's slightly positive, maybe like this. Okay, next up we have the forehead width. That's how wide the top is. And in this case, it's quite wide, I think. Then we have the head height, we already saw that. Head profile, if you go to the side and you think his profile needs to be longer or shorter. In this case, I think it's pretty normal, pretty standard in the middle. I might have to put his jaw back later, but that's a problem for later when we get there. Okay, next up we have the top height. That's again the height of the top, and I think this looks better. Then we have the top width, which is how wide the head on the top is. And I think this should be fine, like, maybe like that, yes. Then we have head width, which actually doesn't change the width of the head, but instead just a little bit the cheeks. So I basically ignore this one. Then we have the jaw angle. Either the jaw goes very much forward or backward. If you put it this way, you should put his chin back, and as you can see, it makes it more square looking. I think in the case of this guy, it's slightly over 50. Yeah, that should do it. Then we have the jaw definition. That's basically how defined the bones are, and then in this case I think he has a slightly defined jaw. Then the jaw forward. Now I can do what I wanted to do before and put his jaw back a little bit, maybe like this. Okay, back to this. We get to the jaw height. And here I would say we leave it like that, and later we put the mouth lower. Jaw width, whether he looks like a Chad or like this. For him, I think it should be pretty much in the middle. Then the mouth corner height, smiling or sad. I will leave it in the middle. And here I go to the mouth height first. Where was it? Here. And put his mouth a little further down, like this, I think. Okay, now mouth forward is how much his mouth goes forward. And in this case, I think he can have it slightly more forward. Yes, that looks good. Now the... Okay, the mouth height. This is better, I think. We can put the nose down later as well. The lip definition, I usually don't really change that a lot because it doesn't make that much of a difference. But full, I often change, and now we have to do the mouth width first because it's hard to do the other options before you change the width of the mouth. I think this looks about the right size. Back to the lower lip full. The pads are basically under the mouth. And I think in this case it's just a little forward. I think now the mouth is too low, even though it looks correct in one picture. Maybe like from the side his mouth needs to be higher, but from the front it looks like it's too high. But I guess that's just how it works in this game. So lip size. Lip size is basically how big the lips are. Then we have the lip width. A little, maybe like this, but then I have to reduce the lip full. Like this probably. And then the philtrum curve. For him, I think it's pretty neutral. Philtrum definition. Philtrum width. Slightly wider in this case, I think. Upper lip curve is how curved the lips are on top. And in this case, I think the middle is fine. upper lip definition again. This is interesting, as you can, oh, that's the wrong picture, I need this one. As you can see, that in this case it would make sense to put them forward a little bit, because his lips are kind of going forward. Like this, I guess. Okay, back to normal view. Now, as you can see, the upper lips are way less full, so I will do that, but I just noticed that the philtrum is now too wide. So I put that back a little bit, about this size. And now it looks pretty good, I think. We don't really have to change the width that much, I think. Maybe a little. Oh, wait, that's the mouth width. I don't want him to look like a frog. Here, lip width. No, the middle is fine. Okay, now for the nose curve, I would say go to a side view. And in this case, you can see it's neither a hawk nor curved inside. So we leave it there. And we go to the nose forward. The nose forward gene will also extend the face. So I usually use that a little less and instead go to nose length, which will basically just extend the nose forward like this. That's good. Then we also have nose height. And in case of this guy, the nose should probably be a little lower, maybe like this. Then we have the nostril angle. His nostrils are quite angled. They are also, in my opinion, higher up than like the lower part of the nose. And they are not as wide as we have them right now. So maybe like this. The nose ridge angle is interesting, because usually I have to go to the right side to make to the left side to make the nose match, but in this case I think this nose is hard. I think like this probably. Yeah, it's not perfect, but no one ever sees those people from the side, so it's not really that important. Then the nose ridge definition. I tend to go a little bit over 50 with most characters, and the nose ridge definition minimum is also an interesting one, because I often go way below 50 for this, as it makes the bridge, or whatever that's called here, a little more defined. Then we have the nose ridge width, and in this case it's pretty much in the middle, I think. Then we also have the nose size, which makes the entire nose bigger or smaller. I don't usually use it a lot, but the nose tip angle, that one is an important one. You can either put the angle down or up. In this case, I think it's slightly up. But I just noticed that the nostril height is probably too high, and he has them further down, maybe like this, but instead the angle is stronger. So maybe like this. Yeah, but now the tip is too tippy. Nose tip angle a little back. Maybe like this. Yeah, that should work. Then the nose tip forward. You can make him look like Pinocchio, or the opposite. So when this guy is young, I think his nose tip width is pretty small. but when he gets older, his nose tip also gets wider. But I think this one might be good. Okay, let's go back to him looking like 25 or 28 and keep it this way. And that was a lot of the most important options. Now there are a few more, and those are especially important when he ages. Oh wait, before we do that, he needs those sideburns. For the sideburns, those are under beards, and European beards at the here. I think this looks kind of like that. If you would need a mustache, you can go to mustaches and grab one there. There are a lot of them to choose, like European ones are like this. But he obviously doesn't have a mustache, so we leave it at this. So now you can see he looks kind of similar when he's old, but we can tweak it a little bit by putting in old and going to Gene Old Eyes. There are 3 options. I usually use 2 of them, this one and this one, because the middle one also changes his cheekbones. For him, I would say number 1 is the better one. Then the forehead basically changes the shape a little bit and the wrinkles. I think in this case number 1 is the best. The mouth is probably the most interesting one, because you have the number 1, which makes it very thin. You have number 2 that adds like folds, I guess, and you have number 3 that makes it generally a little thicker. And I think for him this one works the best. Now we can look at old nose, last but not least. Again, 3 options. I think of those 3 options, number 1 or 2 are the best. Yeah, it's number 2 in this case, I think. It's not perfect. As I said, you won't get it perfect, because you can't change everything as well as the people at Paradox can. Now actually, that I look at his hair, I think when he's old he has a slightly different hairstyle. And I would say the one from... where do we have him? The historical, is it in a historical? No. Wait, it would be this one, but that one doesn't work, so we take the European one. I hope that one, nah. I guess it would work. Kind of looks like that. It's not perfect. Hairstyles never look the way you want them, but I think now he looks pretty correct. I forgot 2 important things for old people. So one of them is called Frown. And what Frown does is basically it changes how the eyebrows look. So Frown 1, he actually frowns, and Frown 2 makes him more like kind of sad looking, I guess. And if I put the age down, you can see it doesn't have a huge effect when they are young, but once they are old, it changes it a lot. In this case, I think the frown shouldn't be as strong. And another one is called Surprise. And Surprise does basically raise the eyebrows the older the character gets. So here he looks normal, and the older he gets, the higher the eyebrows. And I think in this case we don't need it to be high. But I think he looks pretty similar. One thing you might always notice is that the characters in Victoria 3 have generally wider heads, and that makes the whole thing a little hard, because I usually just change the head height, but that doesn't always work. Yeah, that's a problem. So I go back one last time to him in younger. I think this works fine for him. I think it looks good. I'm not sure about the eyes. I feel like they're too high up. Let's zoom in a little bit. If I... they are... No, it's probably just the angle. I think it's fine now. Okay, so anyways, if you have finished your character here, you will extend this window again, and then you can copy the persistent DNA. This persistent DNA I usually save in a file like this. And then if you want to use the DNA for a character, you copy this part inside of the genes, all of this, and put it in a normal DNA template. Those DNA templates I can show you real quick. They look like this. And basically they have a name up here, and then portrait infos and genes, and you just paste in the genes right here, and then it should work. Yeah, so that's how I create characters in Victoria 3 and make their DNA. I hope this helps you, and have a nice day.